In the shadow of a relentless war, a new front erupts. Ukraine's drones strike deep into Russia's heart, targeting the very fuel that powers its invasion. Ukraine has unleashed a daring and calculated campaign of drone strikes aimed at the core of Russia's energy sector. Since August 2024, at least 58 meticulously planned attacks have targeted oil refineries, gas pumping stations, and critical export terminals across Russia's vast territory. These aren't random acts of defiance. Each strike is a surgical blow, designed to disrupt the economic engine that funds Moscow's military machine. Long-range drones, some traveling over 2,000 kilometers, carry explosive payloads to cripple refineries and choke off the oil and gas revenues that sustain Russia's war effort. The impact is staggering. Russia's refining capacity has plummeted by an estimated 21%. Fuel shortages are spreading, and the ripple effects are felt from Moscow's war rooms to global energy markets. This is more than retaliation. It's a strategic gambit to shift the balance of a grueling conflict now entering its fourth year. Why does this matter? Russia's energy sector isn't just a source of wealth. It's the lifeblood of its military. Oil and gas exports account for nearly 40% of Russia's federal budget, funding everything from tanks rolling through Donetsk to missiles raining on Kyiv. By targeting refineries and export hubs, Ukraine aims to starve Moscow's war machine of resources, forcing a reckoning that could reshape the conflict's trajectory. These strikes signal a new phase of warfare, one where innovation, precision, and economic disruption take center stage. But they also raise the stakes, inviting retaliation and threatening to pull the world deeper into the vortex of this escalating crisis. To understand this bold move, we must look at the players and forces driving it. At the heart of Ukraine's campaign are its engineers, coders, and drone pilots, unsung heroes who have turned necessity into innovation. Ukraine's drone program has evolved from makeshift workshops to a sophisticated network, producing thousands of unmanned aerial vehicles each month. Drones like the Lyuty, a long-range model powered by simple gasoline engines, are the spearhead of this offensive. Equipped with visual navigation and anti-jamming technology, these drones can evade Russia's air defenses, slipping through radar nets and anti-aircraft systems to strike targets deep inside Russian territory. Their low cost, some estimate as little as $10,000 per unit, makes them a force multiplier, allowing Ukraine to challenge a military superpower with a fraction of the budget. The motives are clear. President Volodymyr Zelensky has called these strikes sanctions that work fastest. Unlike international sanctions, which can take months or years to bite, drone attacks deliver immediate economic pain. By targeting refineries, Ukraine disrupts Russia's ability to produce gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel, critical not just for civilian use, but for sustaining armored divisions and air forces. The strategy also hits Russia's export capacity, forcing it to sell more crude oil at discounted prices rather than higher-value refined products. This financial squeeze could drain Moscow's war chest, limiting its ability to replenish weapons or pay troops. But there are hidden forces at play. Western intelligence, particularly from the United States and United Kingdom, has quietly bolstered Ukraine's targeting capabilities. Satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and real-time data on Russian infrastructure have guided these strikes, though Western allies stop short of direct involvement to avoid escalation. Meanwhile, Russia's energy sector, once thought impregnable, has exposed glaring weaknesses. Many refineries rely on outdated infrastructure with minimal protection against modern drone warfare. Defensive nets and electronic jammers are being deployed, but they're playing catch-up against Ukraine's rapidly evolving tactics. The human element adds another layer. Ukrainian teams operate under immense pressure, knowing each successful strike invites Russian reprisals. Yet their resolve is unshaken. driven by the memory of cities reduced to rubble and civilians caught in the crossfire. On the Russian side, energy workers and local communities near targeted sites face growing fear as drones strike with increasing frequency. This is a war not just of machines, but of wills, where innovation and desperation collide. As of October 2025, the effects of Ukraine's drone campaign are undeniable. Fires still burn at key facilities like the Orenburg gas plant, one of the world's largest, where a recent strike disrupted operations and sent shockwaves through regional energy markets. The attack didn't just halt production. It disrupted gas exports to Kazakhstan, a key Russian ally, exposing the fragility of Moscow's energy dominance. Across Russia, fuel shortages are biting harder. Gasoline prices have surged by 10% in some regions. Long queues snake around fuel stations, and truckers report delays as diesel becomes scarce. Refineries in regions like Krasnodar and Volgograd, vital to Russia's southern supply chains, are operating at reduced capacity or have shut down entirely for repairs. The economic toll is mounting. Russia's refined product exports, gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel, have dropped sharply, forcing Moscow to flood global markets with crude oil at lower margins. This shift has slashed revenues, with estimates suggesting a 15% drop in energy income since the strikes intensified. For a nation spending billions to sustain its invasion, this is a critical blow. Domestically, the Kremlin faces growing unrest as civilians grapple with fuel shortages and rising costs, a stark contrast to the narrative of strength projected by President Vladimir Putin. On the battlefield, the impact is equally profound. Fuel shortages are hampering Russian logistics, slowing troop movements, and limiting air operations. Ukraine, meanwhile, is ramping up drone production, with factories churning out thousands of units monthly. Each drone is a message. Ukraine can strike anywhere, anytime. Yet Russia is adapting. New defensive measures, nets, jammers, and mobile anti-aircraft units are being deployed around key sites. The skies over Russia have become a deadly chessboard, with drones and interceptors locked in a high-stakes dance of evasion and destruction. The world is watching with a mix of awe and unease. In the United States, President Donald Trump, now in his second term, has taken a bold stance, authorizing the sharing of targeting intelligence with Ukraine without the hesitations of his predecessors. This shift reflects a broader U.S. strategy to weaken Russia economically while avoiding direct military confrontation. However, Trump's recent comments about land concessions as a path to peace have sparked debate, with some allies questioning whether Washington is pushing for a resolution or preparing for a longer proxy conflict. In Europe, reactions are mixed. The United Kingdom, a staunch supporter of Ukraine, has openly analyzed the strike's impact, with defense officials praising Kyiv's ingenuity. Energy markets, however, are on edge. While global oil prices have remained relatively stable, the threat of further disruptions has traders nervous. European nations, heavily reliant on Russian gas before the war, now face indirect consequences as Kazakhstan's exports falter. In Asia, China, and India, major buyers of Russian crude, are quietly adjusting to the shifting supply chain. But neither has condemned the strikes, preferring to capitalize on discounted oil. International organizations have been notably silent. The United Nations has issued no formal statements, reflecting the geopolitical stalemate that has paralyzed action on Ukraine. Energy analysts, however, warn of a broader impact. If Russia's output continues to decline, global energy prices could spike, hitting developing nations hardest. For now, the world holds its breath, recognizing that Ukraine's drone campaign is rewriting the rules of modern warfare. What lies ahead? Several paths emerge, each fraught with risk. If Ukraine sustains its drone offensive, Russia's energy sector could face long-term damage. Refineries already stretched may take months to repair, further eroding Moscow's budget. This could force Putin to scale back military operations, redirecting funds to domestic needs or infrastructure defense. Alternatively, economic pressure might push Russia toward negotiations, offering a chance to end the war, but only if Ukraine and its allies hold firm. Escalation is a real danger. Russia has already retaliated with missile strikes on Ukraine's energy grid, plunging cities into darkness. If Ukraine receives advanced Western weapons, like U.S. Tomahawk missiles, the strikes could intensify, targeting even more critical infrastructure. This risks provoking Russia into broader attacks, potentially targeting NATO supply lines or civilian targets in Ukraine's west. The worst-case scenario? A spiral into a wider conflict, drawing in global powers. Yet there's a third possibility: adaptation. Russia could bolster its defenses, neutralizing Ukraine's drones and restoring its energy output. This would prolong the war, turning it into a grueling test of endurance. Ukraine, in turn, might innovate further, developing even more advanced drones or targeting new sectors, like Russia's rail networks. The outcome hinges on which side can outpace the other in this technological arms race. Ukraine's drone strikes have ignited a new chapter in this brutal war, one where innovation battles attrition and every explosion reshapes the global order. The energy lifeline frays, but the cost is steep. For both nations and the world watching, will these strikes force Russia to its knees or light the fuse for a wider conflagration? The answers are unfolding, strike by strike.